what is the impact of enterprise level AI on the jobs. And boy, do I see this is massive, a lot of change happening in the middle, senior levels, junior levels, humans, agents, whatnot.
There's an awful lot of headlines at the moment about these large organizations having enormous layoffs, the likes of Amazon and Salesforce and UPS. It's very convenient for the press to put those announcements on the AI agenda because that is very much the commentary that is being pushed, isn't it, within the mainstream media.
As far as this paradox goes, when you talk about these 12,000 odd people in Accenture, a lot of them may be adjacent to AI roles. So I think to some extent there is this feeling of people inside enterprises that they are not yet ready for it. So there is the FOMO, there is insecurity, that sort of thing. The system of record companies will go back, but the agents will do all the bidding, or the sales guy has just come back from a meeting and wants to update the opportunity line.
I'm glad you bring up the agent point because I'm worrying about this. But I worry about the agents and the agentic solutions because all the principles that we've talked about in terms of how you work with AI and having that human in the loop review process and control and you listen to these dystopian concerns about actually AI getting too powerful and actually where do we fit in that context?
I wouldn't go to complete autonomous agents deployment straight away. Think of the points where deterministic application of a particular tech tends to go into the non-deterministic kind of stage.
Welcome to No Effing Idea, the podcast where two battle-tested insiders cut through the noise about enterprise AI. Some straight talk about what AI really means for organizations trying to transform, both from strategy and technology angles. David Royal is the founder of Tanhill.ai, an AI strategy and deployment firm for mid-sized and specialist firms. And prior to that, led many enterprises transform at EY, Capgemini, and Grant Thornton. And Srini Annamaraju co-founded IntelStack, an AI and cloud services firm, and before that, led strategic growth at Capgemini, TCS, and HPE. He also writes the High Stakes Tech Leader newsletter for enterprise leaders. Please welcome your hosts, David and Srini.
Morning, David. How are you today?
Yeah, very well, Srini. Yourself?
Not bad, It's an interesting time to be alive, and there's so much happening that, it's fun time.
I'm pretty excited. We had the first day of our 10-week operationalizing AI bootcamp on Monday.
Nice.
So we had 35 executives all signed up, and we had the first session, which was full of energy and great fun. And it's a bit like trying to run 30 AI transformation projects in parallel, so it keeps you on your toes.
This segment of small and medium enterprises, that segment is probably just lost in plain sight. There's a lot happening at 30,000 feet. There's a lot happening with large enterprises. What is really happening in this segment is something that you're spending a lot of time on, which is fantastic.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a really rewarding place, and there's definitely a lot of energy within the sector. And I mean, I think this for me is sort of, you've got the two stories in my mind. You've got the big JP Morgan enterprise grade stories.
Yes.
And you've got the consumer level awareness. And then there's this bit in the middle, which is, okay, how does that work for SME organizations? But they're really embracing it. And I'm certainly the crowd we had for this boot camp are really energized, full of ideas, and really keen to embrace it.
Yeah, you come to think of it, this segment is a powerful engine in the UK economy.
It drives the UK economy. I mean, this is by far the biggest contributor. It's extraordinary. Yeah.
Not really focusing on this segment is not going to help. And I think quite understandably, a lot of the work that government is doing is top down, but a lot of this bottom up push-ups is so much more required.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was kind of why I started Tanhill, because our big global banks and technology firms were investing hugely in their generative AI strategies and transformations and the like, and realizing value out of it. But then when I spoke to my smaller clients, they were nowhere. So that was what we perceived as a real gap. But I think it's definitely shifting. I mean, there's definitely a huge amount of interest, and I'm sure you're having the same thing, Srini, that my friends, my social contacts are all talking about it, embracing it. And actually, I'm working with a whole bunch of good mates now who I play tennis with, have asked me to look at their business, and it's really rewarding. They don't mix business and pleasure, so that might fall over for me. But at the moment, it's great fun.
No, that's right. And I think, come to think of it, SMEs and mid-market enterprises have a big role to talk about in terms of jobs and the shifting jobs, which is kind of the theme that we wanted to focus on today. Yeah. What is the impact of enterprise level AI on the jobs? And boy, do I see this. This is massive. A lot of change happening in the middle, senior levels, junior levels, humans, agents, whatnot. I think that's a whole lot of things. Thought we'll spend 30, 40 minutes today on talking about this particular subject. What is the impact on the people, on the enterprise, that sort of thing, David. And that's what I thought we'll pick up today.
No, I think that's great. There's an awful lot of headlines at the moment about these large organizations having enormous layoffs. The likes of Amazon and Salesforce and UPS. You're seeing the headlines coming out with tens of thousands of people being laid off. When you dig into the stories a little bit longer, that's probably quite a small percentage of their global workforce because they're so damn large. But still, that's still 14,000 people who are no longer gainfully employed, and their financial security is very much uprooted. So it's a big deal. I'm not observing the same thing in the SME market yet, but I think that's probably the maturity of those organizations haven't got to that point to be able to realize those efficiencies. And that's probably, there's probably a question there that's going to create some greater social turmoil when that occurs, because that is much closer to most of us working in the SME sector. And then when those people start losing jobs, that's going to be really felt.
Yeah, I think these headline job losses and the job changes that we hear about are a mix of things, isn't it? We all see and hear that during COVID, a lot of hiring happened, and it is that shedding that's going on right now is one kind of refrain. The other is that AI is actually working, and therefore as many people are not required. So that's the other refrain. The third could be that enterprises are actually using these logic points to actually become more lean, whether AI is really helping them or not, whether they have overhired in the past and therefore, so all of those mixed thing is coming up. But good thing is, right on the ground, maybe if you put up all these numbers together, and if US economy or the UK economy figures, formal economy wise, come out, probably it's a very small percentage. Look at it in terms of perspective, broader perspective, it's probably still a very small percentage of direct impact on employment.
And it's very convenient for the press to put those announcements on the AI agenda, because that is very much the commentary that is being pushed, isn't it, within the mainstream media? And frankly, organizations are doing restructuring all the time. So the same job losses would be announced 10 years ago, and it would be blamed on something fundamentally different, an economic shift or whatever it might have been, or outsourcing or whatever it could have been.
Yeah. But one thing is for sure, the first thing that comes to me when I think of all this is there's a bit of dichotomy happening inside enterprises. You have kind of a dual workforce kind of a paradox where on one end, take the example of, let's say, people doing copywriting as far as marketing is concerned. Now, they are no more writing copy as such. They are only supervising copy, but they're moving on to doing things which is channel strategy or doing something that's more value adding to the enterprise where judgment is involved. So I think that shift is happening. So there's, on one hand, I see, there's a lot of surplus of these people who are actually being disintermediated by the LLMs, for example, to be simplistic about it. And then, of course, there is a shortage of people who can really apply that judgment. That's one critical thing that I'm seeing in terms of the paradox, as it were.
I think you're absolutely right. And different skills start becoming more important. And the people who don't have those skills clearly struggle to find the future. I would be taken aback by the likes of Accenture's announcement. I think they had 12,000 people that they were announcing being made redundant. And these are, Accenture is a technology firm. And those 12,000 people are going to be very AI literate and educated and able to work in a technology environment. So that for me was quite an interesting perspective, and why 12,000 Accenture consultants wouldn't have the right skills. But I'm actually wondering if that is because of that sort of changing role. It's not necessarily the ability to do technology, it's the ability to work with technology. And I think that sort of managerial communication skills become more important. And frankly, many of them may not have had that skill, and that's where that sort of motivations come from.
Yeah, no, that's right. And then the other thing that you see happening within enterprises as far as this paradox goes is that when you talk about these 12,000 odd people in Accenture, a lot of them may be adjacent to AI roles. They may be using an LLM to write a user story, and then they may already be doing it, but they may be thinking they are not AIized as such. So I think to some extent, there is this feeling of people inside enterprises that they are not yet ready for it. So there is the FOMO, there is the insecurity, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
There's no way of predicting and planning for the next 8, 9, 12 months of what will you learn to be completely AI ready. So I think that is playing out as we speak.
Yeah, I mean, clearly AI education is critical for people to be able to operate in this new world. I was reflecting on the changing shape of organizations, and I think these big announcements are testament to it. And I know it's a model that I've certainly used in my career around that sort of pyramid of resourcing. And certainly in professional services, you used to have a large number of junior resources, and then less managers, less senior managers, and then correspondingly even less leaders. And I think that model is going to fundamentally shift. And that's a big deal for the professional services sector, because that's where they all made their margin before.
Yes.
On the junior resources, because they didn't pay them very much, and they had 80, 90% utilization and were busy as hell. But I mean, I'm envisaging sort of these big announcements are reflecting that shift, whereby a lot of those junior resources are no longer required, certainly not as many of them are as required. So talk of moving to more of that diamond shape, whereby you've got leaders, you've got AI-enabled managers and senior managers, and then less juniors, because a lot of that work is being done by AI. And I'm actually thinking that even could be more extreme and becomes a narrower diamond. You'll still need to have the spread, but you don't need so many people at all.
Yeah, I think, and then you've not even included in the conversation so far with the kind of incursion of agents, as I say it. Yeah. One very interesting thing that I was reading was there was this company is trying to acquire another company, and they actually looked at the company that was to be acquired, that company's product. And they got the LLM or coding, AI coding to actually create that product backwards. And they found that their own product was better than the company that they were planning to acquire. So, these are the kind of examples that then they dropped the acquisition plan because they thought, I can do this myself.
That's
so,
I hadn't heard that story, but that's interesting. So did they have the insight by going through the due diligence process of the acquisition and then got the intel on what was being done and then thought, we could recreate that, we no longer need to buy it?
Correct. So whether that is when they were doing the due diligence, they said, okay, if this is the product indeed, what does it take now with the new tools and new tech that's available to create it ourselves? And if that product that we feel is actually better than ours, then the acquisition makes sense, because then it's 2 + 2 is 5. But if not, then you're basically spending time acquiring, which is something going to weaken you.
I mean, that could have a huge impact on the M&A sector, couldn't it? In terms of, I mean, why buy something if you can recreate it with AI? I mean, and then people are going to get very defensive about protecting their IP and their solutions, because if someone can just copy it with a little bit of insight, then all the value in your organization's gone.
I mean, I also want to say, to my cynical or skeptic mind that, there is distribution. That company would have had stronger distribution. They would have had the other things.
Absolutely,
So I think I'd say, yes, this is important to come to a kind of first level decision, but you got existing customer base of that company, you got distribution, you got other cultural aspects. there's whatever else, right? So I
Whatever.
think those are aspects that.
So the wider sort of strategic rationale for the acquisition beyond the underlying technology still exists, and that makes sense.
Correct.
But I mean, I've certainly, when I've my sort of exposure to sort of the different vibe coding solutions, and you see examples of people saying, replicate Salesforce for me. And I mean, and they can give it a decent shot. I mean, the actual value within the technology suddenly becomes really quite constrained, doesn't it? I mean, if something like Salesforce, which is this huge, sophisticated capability, can be easily mimicked, then actually the underlying value is challenged.
Yeah, I mean, interesting you say that, but one recent tweet I saw from Jason Lemkin, who runs this rather influential kind of a group of SaaS companies. He's basically an influencer for SaaS companies. He said all these CRMs and even ERPs will recede to the background, and agents will come to the fore, and agents will actually fill in that field of opportunity, the CRM, etc. And then all of these companies will not go away. The sales forces will not go away or will not be easy to replicate. But these system of record companies will go back, but the agents will do all the bidding, or the sales guy has just come back from a meeting and wants to update the opportunity line. So I think the kind of come forward of the agents in this kind of a firmament of layers, the systems of record, even to some extent systems of engagement kind of software will go back to the background. Do you think that is going to be the way forward, in terms of interfaces?
I mean, certainly got the potential. I mean, I agree entirely. I'm glad you bring up the agent point, because I'm worrying about this. And I mean, I'm an AI consultant, so I should be embracing it, but I worry about the agents and the agentic solutions, because all the principles that we've talked about in terms of how you work with AI and having that human in the loop review process and control, and you listen to these dystopian concerns about actually AI getting too powerful, and actually where do we fit in that context? And then I look at the definition of an agent or an agentic solution, and it seems to be when something is autonomous and able to achieve an outcome by itself. And that is exactly the context that we've been advising organizations to be really careful about, and making sure they got a human in the loop. And agentic seems to be the exact opposite. So, I mean, that for me is a worry, and it needs the ill-educated or the frankly bad actor to actually abuse that.
Yes. I would say, you're right. I wouldn't go to complete autonomous agents deployment straight away. Think of the points where deterministic application of a particular tech tends to go into the indeterministic, non-deterministic kind of stage. And then the human in the loop aspect you bring about, that kind of takes care of the non-deterministic part of it. And then you work backwards and say, okay, am I comfortable with that bit of non-deterministic? And then you go to, it's all a spectrum, isn't it? It's 5-point spectrum, 5 being fully autonomous. You probably start at 2 or at 3. And then as you become comfortable in the organization about your HITL norms, your, other things that go with it, it requires a whole thing called the AgentOps, kind of an infra that you need to put in place. And humans play a key role. And, somewhere I was reading this, that for every one agent, now you probably need a different classification of human capability. So if you have a AI agent, probably you need a human monitor to look at it. You need a compliance auditor to come in. Not necessarily they're all like each agent is generating 3 more jobs, but at least, part-time, there's a lot of impact or, cascading effect of employment on humans as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I expand the human in the loop analogy and just say the loop is getting bigger and bigger. So actually the amount of supervision required is reduced on an individual workflow. And actually therefore one person could then therefore be observing and overseeing a far bigger area of responsibility. And no doubt that is where these big job losses and announcements are originating from, because you still need the supervisory managerial layer, but they were far less of them because they can cover so much more. And this is where the rubber hits the road in terms of this future business model, isn't it? When you've got we talked the other week about operating models and the design of how an organization operates. Yeah. I mean, you've got that fundamental rethinking required of, okay, so if this team was previously 25 people and now 12 of them are agents, and I've got 3 junior resources and 5 managers and then 1 senior manager, and that's my new construct, then actually how does that work on a day-to-day basis? How do you ensure to get the right quality and output from that hybrid workforce?
Yes. And you got to treat those agents as part of the team. So each manager will probably have 4 humans and 15 agents, and the org structure, if I can call it that, we'll have to see what is the CV of each agent. What is the kind of capability set of that agent? Is it going down, going up? Is it, drifting the wrong way? What is the securability of that agent? Those kind of aspects will come in, and the org structures will look completely different in the future.
Yeah, but also a lot of our human-based management techniques probably translate across in terms of performance management and training and of an agentic workforce. But I mean, it's easy to say, but actually how that feels and what that feels like on the ground for the individual who's working in the team with 4 bots rather than actually some good mates in an office in Stroud is going to be quite a shift.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting direction the whole thing is taking, but it'll take time to actually percolate down to end user organizations, as I call them, not technology companies.
Yeah. And certainly the SME sector. I mean, that's where we started the conversation, wasn't it? In terms of your big conglomerates making these big shifts. And that's presumably the reality that they're beginning to experience. And some of those motivations are being reflected in that. Whereas certainly the market I focus on in the SME sector, they're on the journey and they're embracing this, but they're not realizing that fundamental shift in their workforce yet. But presumably it's going to come.
I think you're right. One thing that this whole shift can help, which I kind of like the post that Aaron Levy of Box puts out, he's thinking is, why don't you use agents, or why don't you use AI to use a broader term, to attack the backlog? Because a lot of organizations do not work on a lot of backlog that they have. A lot of things that they always say, I don't have people to do this. I don't have the budget to hire new people to do this. So that's the old kind of conventional way of looking at it. So why don't you use AI to get agents to help, or AI to help with the existing humans, and then you can actually get a lot more done, which is, even if it is repeatable, even if it's deterministic, doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, indeed. I was just reflecting the other day. Do you remember AWS went down the other week? And
oh yes, my God, yes.
Yeah, and so quite a lot of AI tools were struggling, and I have to admit that concept of skill loss that AI imposes, I felt firsthand when suddenly my Whisper flow wasn't working, my email generation tool wasn't working, and I had to think. I had to take a step back and think, okay, I've got to write an email. What's the right structure, and how do I get my point across? And actually, I felt quite sort of edgy about the whole thing, because I'd sort of lost some of that discipline of just crafting an email quickly and rapidly. I had to get back to first principles.
Yes, the AWS one was quite instructive. How a whole lot of intermediate layers of tech. Vercel was down, our website was behaving funnily. It was all that sort of thing happening. I don't know, there were 1 or 2 things which also didn't work for me on my personal things. Which was it? I don't know what. One of those AI tools was not working. Was it Notion or something? So it's not working. So I think if the conventional part, and there was not much of an AI involvement there. It's just the downstream effect of somebody like the big daddy AWS, breaking down. Then what is the kind of cascading effect of all of the others, which is scary. And, if we are so dependent on AI already, then just imagine the kind of impact it might have as we go along.
I mean, I was thinking about this from a sort of operational resilience perspective. And if we're all reliant on a few underlying technologies and businesses, and particularly they're all co-invested with each other. So your NVIDIAs and your OpenAIs and your Oracles are all part of the same infrastructure. If there's a problem in something, the knock-on implication is going to be enormous, isn't it? Because we're all so interconnected now.
Yes. What was surprising is how come these companies did not do a failover or did not do a BCP, the usual conventional things that you do if you're running anything more than, 10 million pounds or dollars revenue, right? I mean, or even 100 million, right? All these companies that we're talking about are above 100 million revenues easily. And if they don't do that, then, what do you blame a smaller company for if they don't do that? So I think it's all multiple universes working together. The conventional BCPDR has to be sorted, whereas also to embrace the new and bright and shiny things coming up in the world. So I think it's a mix of all of that, actually.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I have to admit, I haven't seen sort of the fallout from that AWS moment. And people are asking those hard questions on how on earth did that happen? And how on earth has the impact been so significant? Because, I mean, everyone from San Francisco to London was talking about it. And it was a big deal. And I mean, I felt it myself. My tools weren't working and I was limited in how I could operate. But why on earth was that possible? Why wasn't there something, a flip built into the design of it to ensure that didn't manifest itself?
No, that's right. And then, the to the credit of Amazon, they did put out a very detailed RCA, root cause analysis of what happened. And apparently their pointing was to something called DynamoDB. And this was a database that they use and which kind of fell through, I think. And then that's what caused the whole thing. But come to think of it, why did even AWS? Why look beyond that layer? They should have done the BCPDR at that level themselves, and kind of others should not even know that something happened. It should not even
layer upon layer upon layer, shouldn't it? So I mean, AWS themselves should have had a fallback, and then the organizations that rely on AWS cloud should have had a fallback, and then the tools that rely on those. I mean, it should be managed. So I don't know why that did happen, but that's your world, really. That's not mine. But I'm a relative. I'm just the consumer and frustrated by it when it fell over and highlighted my skills loss that I'm already experiencing.
And we haven't seen the full blown effect of agency yet. I mean, we're talking about conventional tech crippling down, and then we're not even talked about agents going rogue or anything like that. So, wow, what's your thought process in terms of, the aspects around apprentices, the younger staff? You're talking to some companies that have a lot of this kind of the intern level, the apprentice, the entry level kind of structure. There are always two types. Let me pose this paradox to you, so you've got two types of apprentices, interns. One is the bright and shiny guy who's completely aware of what's AI doing already, and therefore even being able to reverse mentor the senior people in the enterprise. Then, of course, there are the others who are good at a particular craft, but not really good at AI, etc. How does the organization really assimilate this kind of a mix of apprentices into it in a way that, there's all-around goodness kind of spread from this kind of an induction, including the senior people who are either, I won't call them Luddites, but, even if they are reluctant to try this, how do you get better value from this? Is there any change in strategy that you think will be required?
I mean, apprenticeships is quite a sort of a personal topic for me, because I've worked with setting up apprenticeship programs in a number of organizations over the years, and have always perceived it as a fantastic mechanism for social mobility and bringing real expertise into an organization and really getting access to some of the brightest minds out there that the traditional educational route was failing. So I was a real advocate of apprenticeship programs and saw great value from them. But then coupled with the conversations we're having around organizational constructs and that moving away from that pyramid shape to much more of the diamond shape, I don't know what the answer is here, because I thought apprenticeships were really growing and developing as a significant route for our workforce. But then actually the number of graduate jobs are going right down, and by association apprenticeships and that sort of demand for junior resources is going down. So I don't know how that manifests itself, because I think they're quite contradictory forces at play there, and I don't know what happens.
Yeah, so I think the possible direction, of course, is the reverse mentoring aspect, but also the junior resources. They need to also learn the business process, which the veterans might know. So I think that's clear pairing that can work. And with the kind of change that's happening in AI, even for the enterprise world, the younger guys are better equipped to absorb that change and then kind of spread it within the enterprise. So to your diamond point earlier, the diamond-shaped org structure, the effectiveness of the junior layer in terms of spreading it to the middle and the senior layers will become much more important because their ability to absorb new change coming out from the frontline companies is better. And of course, the middle layer is the one that will probably face the most change in terms of role changes, right? They will no more be fixated titles for a year or 2 years. They'll probably have to start owning capabilities. And how do they morph those capabilities to also bring in new tech, which is where the junior layer can help. And of course, to keep all this in shape, the senior people. So I think, a ramble, but, thinking about how this whole thing works out between the three layers of the organization, if you will.
So, I'll challenge you a little bit on the junior level, if I may, because I think what you're describing is the standout candidates. And those ones who are very able and very adept and got the right background are going to thrive regardless. And I can see that model and I can see that reverse mentoring and supporting stuff. But that for me is going to be the really good candidates. And there is just a huge mass of people who aren't quite so good. And what on earth do they do?
It's probably, no different from what you would do, putting them through a kind of 6-month training program inside an organization and that sort of thing. Maybe go even a step backwards, and before they graduate from their colleges, there's a kind of element of change in the education that they get in terms of being completely well-versed with the shifts that are coming, and therefore they're not impeding the progress inside an enterprise.
Yeah, my observation is the AI education obviously is key, kind of irrespective. There are those jobs where AI has less implication, and we talk about the plumbers and the electricians and the etc. And that's good. But I still think there is a huge merit in the skills that become more valuable. So you've got your people skills, and as always was thus, but also I think that cognitive ability to be able to use AI in a proactive way. And certainly my own experiences is I actually apply a lot of my life experiences and my challenging mindsets to how I work with AI to get the best out of it. And we need to educate our young people to have that same cognitive challenge to get the right outcome. And that for me is, I think, quite a hard thing to sort of get your arm around. But I think that sort of that ability to develop that thought process is going to become more and more important. And clearly being a good manager, and we talked about managing agents and managing people. And frankly, when you're interacting with your AI, you are demonstrating the management skills, aren't you? You're saying, no, not like that. I want this. And, that's good, but let's think about it this way. And it's I think those are actually managerial skills that are actually being applied as you're working with your computer screen.
Yes. And I think this will get amplified with pushback coming from the AI capabilities that a software will begin to have, or generally the change in the business processes within the enterprise, how that will come. And, one particular very helpful thing that might shift the needle inside enterprises is, the shorter term micro-credentials, the things that really will drive, instead of, a 6-month long program or a long kind of static skills improvement. A lot of the micro-credentials, I think those will come in handy when you talked about education earlier inside a little 3-day program that runs alongside the work you're doing. Let's say you're compliance or you're in marketing. What are that kind of skills? I don't think there's a lot of capability of those kind of micro-credentials. I'm not talking about 6 months Python course. I'm talking about those 2 or 3 days of things that actually can quickly bring somebody up to speed on what is the latest on that. So I think micro-credentials is one thing that I think really help.
Indeed. So I had a topic I'd like to sort of bring up, probably for our next podcast. But back on the basis of a article I read in Wired, actually. And it was replicated in the boot camp that I was referencing. We just started beginning of this week. And this sort of idea of the Wild West of AI. And it's the language that I remember in the dot-com era. And there was sort of the Wild West of sort of the internet and how things operated. And it seems to be a language that is coming back, and that we are now in the Wild West of AI. And it's extraordinarily exciting because all the opportunities are just opening up. But actually how we manage it and how we regulate it and how we realize the implications of it, I think deserves some unpacking, because there, like never before in my career, and I've been around a while, have I seen anything like this. And I mean, I'd say it's wilder than the dot-com era. And there was some extraordinary stories and disasters and success stories as well that occurred on that basis. So managing this AI Wild West, I'm wondering, is something that we could explore a bit more.
I think it's topical. Let's do that. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, well, I might do a bit of homework as well in advance of that, but I think it's a topic. I think that's quite exciting to how to sheriff the Wild West, perhaps, or something.
That's what I was getting at. How to sheriff the Wild West, indeed. Yes.
Very good. Okay, well, I look forward to that, Srini. Was there anything else you wanted to cover off today?
Nothing else. I think we've done a whirlwind of various things that we talked about in terms of enterprise jobs shifting, morphing, etc. And then I'd say, if you like this pod, please like, follow, subscribe, so we can come to you as soon as we upload the next episode. We're trying to be regular. We're trying to do this every 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks. Yeah. And we'll start bringing in some guests that David and I have, and hopefully this will be further value adding to all of you.
The 1 to 2 weeks is a dig at me because I was too busy last week to do it. So it did shift into the 2 weeks. So apologies for that. It was a busy week, but enjoying the process. This is episode number 5, wasn't it, Srini?
It is indeed. Yeah.
Okay. So that's not bad. That's a milestone in itself. So I'm looking forward to episode 6.
Thank you very much, David. And thank you all for listening. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.